What's up, team? This is going to be a good one because I have found out when running becomes easier. It's probably something that you've thought about quite a bit, especially when you're out there on those days when you're struggling. You think, when is it just going to feel easy? When am I going to be good at it? If you're a new runner, that is definitely something you've been thinking about. So today, in this video, I am going to tell you. Let's get into it. Alright guys, much like my other videos that I usually publish on a Monday, I usually find an article and then I talk about it to you. And in this case, I found an article on Aptiv, and the article is titled, "When Does Running Get Easier?" And I was especially pleased to read this article because I noticed my buddy Kyle Kranz is quoted in it several times. Kyle Kranz is an epic vegan runner. He's a coach, he has a YouTube channel, he's on Instagram, I'm pretty sure he's on Facebook, although I don't get on Facebook enough to really check, but I'm pretty sure he is. So if you want to connect with him for some good coaching advice, I will put a link to his profiles in the show notes below, and of course I'll put a link to the article. So there are a couple of different ways that we find running difficult, and obviously it's going to be physically, right? Sometimes it just doesn't feel good to go out and run, get our heart rates up. Sometimes we've got other things we want to do. Sometimes we'd rather sit on the sofa and watch TV. Sometimes we don't want to do anything, but we just know we don't feel like running. This is especially the case for new runners, before we've gotten into the habit, before we've had those adaptations that we get from when we've been running for a little while. And we're talking about both cardiovascularly and muscularly. Anyway, both your heart and your muscles. They see improvements after you've been running for a little bit. But even if you are not a brand new runner, even if you've been running for a little bit, even if, let's say, like me, you've been running for 15 years, I hate to say it, but running isn't always easy. In fact, I would say that it's more not easy than it is easy. And even when it's easy, it's really not that easy. In fact, Kyle is quoted in the article as saying that running never gets easier. You just learn to run longer or faster. So what that means is that as you develop, as you grow as a runner, as you get more endurance, as you get stronger, you're going to be able to run for a longer amount of time. You're going to be able to run faster, but your max effort. So let's say your 5K pace, whether you are running a 35-minute 5K or a 20-minute 5K, if it's your max effort, it's not going to feel good. It's not going to feel easy. And let me remind you that if it was easy, everyone would do it. There really wouldn't be a challenge in it. And if there wasn't a challenge, then no one would do it. So I guess if it was easy, everyone would do it, and no one would do it. It's a good thing it's not easy, because those two things cancel each other out. Okay, so that's the physical side, right? That's the physical side. We know that when we're running hard, it's going to be a challenge, whether we're running fast and we're running hard, or we're running slower than fast and we're running hard. Hard is hard. Speed is irrelevant. There's also the mental side. And this, I think, is more important. This is a bigger indication of whether running is easy or whether it's hard. And I'm going to be talking out both sides of my mouth because it's not always the same. Sometimes you can have a really strong mental game, but it just isn't working that day, so running feels harder than it should be. And other days, you're really happy to get out there and you're trained and you feel fit and running does seem easy. Although, in my opinion, and I'd love to hear from you guys, I'd love to hear from the people who are watching this that are actually running on a regular basis, that have been running for several years. I'd like to know how often running actually feels easy. Because although I do have those days, I have those days when I go out and everything just flows. Those days are usually following a time of extended rest, maybe a taper, and then I go into an event, a race, and in the beginning it seems like I'm running at a sustainable effort. I'm surrounded by people, there's a good atmosphere, everyone's encouraging, everything just clicks, at least in the beginning. You know, then you get to the end of the race and all that encouragement and that rest kind of wears off, and then you're feeling like it's not so easy again. But for the beginning, it's very easy. Anyway, my point of that is that most of the time I'm not racing. Most of the time I am not in a taper, or I'm recovering, or I'm sleeping more, or I'm eating more, or I'm running less. Usually, if I take an average day throughout the year, I'm going out and I'm doing an easy run. A couple of times of the week, I'm picking up the pace and I'm running harder. And here's what I found. And I think this is probably, I don't know if this is a secret, maybe it's something that everybody knows, or at least everyone that's been running for a while knows. And I think it's a secret that new runners need to know. But even though you go out for an easy run, and we call an easy run like a moderately paced run where you can generally have a conversation with the person running next to you, even though that is an easy run, it may not always feel easy. I mean, what is easy? Right now, what I'm doing now, talking to you in front of the camera, this feels pretty easy. My heart rate is very low, I'm very relaxed, I'm in an air-conditioned studio. All this around me now, this is decidedly easier than an easy run. And there will be days that you'll go out for an easy run and things just aren't clicking. But here's what I want you to do. When you're in that easy run and you think, it's tough. And by the way, you can't judge this in the first mile or two of your run. When you go out and you start running, hopefully you've already done your dynamic warm-ups, you've started your run, you're usually feeling a bit sluggish in the beginning. totally normal. There's an old running adage that you never judge a run in the first mile, but I like to extend that out to 2 miles. So if you have successfully got past that point and you're still feeling just like it's not easy and it is an easy run, I want you to start doing a self-analysis. I want you to start at your feet, kind of work your way up to your head and think about how each part of your body is feeling. And this is what I bet you'll find. I bet you'll find that you cannot pinpoint what is actually difficult. And of course, this is assuming that you're not injured, that you don't have any pains, but you're just going out for an easy run, an easy trot. Your heart rate's at a nice controlled level. But if you start thinking about your body, your feet, your legs, your hips, your core, your shoulders, your arms, your heart rate, if you start thinking about each element of your body, you will find that your run actually is easy. And what does that leave? It leaves your mind. So when I find that an easy run isn't easy, I look at my heart rate, I look at my pace, because generally speaking, I know where my heart rate needs to be for an easy run. I know where my pace needs to be for an easy run. And if everything is going well, at least on paper, the one thing left is how am I thinking? Am I thinking positively about my run? Do I have my mind right? And that's a rhetorical question because the answer is clearly no. I don't have my mind right if I'm feeling like my run isn't easy on an easy run. And the good thing is, it's an easy fix. It's an easy fix by changing your mindset. You can either decide that you are having a good time, that this is an easy run, that it's not a struggle. Your body is actually feeling pretty good despite what your mind is telling you, or if that is just too much trouble, and I get it, sometimes it is, you can just go ahead and push on through. And I think there is also value in pushing on through. I think the best way is to get your mind right. Obviously, we need to have a healthy mental approach to our running, but if you can't, for whatever reason, it's okay. You don't have to have a good mindset. It just makes everything in life easier, but you don't have to. You can push on through, knowing that it is an easy run, but your rate of perceived exertion is going to be higher than it actually is. Does that make sense? Of course, rate of perceived exertion is a totally subjective method, but if you are self-aware and you know that you're running at the right pace, that your heart rate is low enough, that rate of perceived exertion is not the be-all and end-all of effort. Sometimes you just have to put it aside and get on with it. In fact, there was a 2015 study that showed how mental fatigue does slow you down. And that study is linked in the article that I will link in the show notes below. So if you want to dig a little deeper into it and read that abstract, the link's going to be in the link in the show notes. But honestly, it's pretty basic, right? Mental fatigue makes you slower. That makes sense. So if you've gotten to this point and you've kind of been picking up like, Matt, you've been running for a little while and yet you still find that your easy runs aren't easy sometimes. Let me just say this, is that your running will get easier. While Kyle is correct that running doesn't get easier in that you just start to run faster, you just start to run longer. It does get easier because the training builds upon itself. What you get used to is going out the door. What you get used to is developing that habit, and then it's easy to put those shoes on even when you don't feel like it. What gets easier is learning how to approach discomfort. And discomfort can mean anything. It's how we interpret that discomfort. Running at a 5K pace, that is a level of discomfort. But if we compare it to just sitting on the sofa, going out for a zone 2 easy run is a little more uncomfortable. And with practice and with time and with training, those easy runs get easier. They might not always feel easier, but they are easier. So let's summarize. I have said that sometimes running is not easy. Sometimes it is easy. Sometimes you misinterpret an easy run as a hard run. But ultimately, it gets a little easier because of some things. It doesn't always feel easier, but trust me, it is easier. And then there are going to be those times when you experience setbacks. And setbacks can be anything. Maybe you've had an injury. Maybe you've had a big life event. Maybe you may interpret moving up as a setback. So let's say you're running a 5K, you complete a 5K, everything's great, then you decide to start training for a 10K or a half marathon. Well, the training changes. You're having to run further. You're having to do different workouts, and those workouts are going to challenge you differently. So your running isn't going to feel as easy as it did to something that you're used to. And if we are talking about setbacks to do with injury, Kyle does point out that it takes a long time to build that fitness. It takes a much shorter amount of time to lose that fitness. But then when you come back and you're coming back at an appropriate level, you're not just jumping into pre-injury training, your fitness will return at a remarkably faster rate than it did when you first started. So don't let setbacks get you down too much. You will be back. So in a nutshell, yes, running does get easier, but it doesn't always feel that way. Okay, now it's your turn. I want to hear from you. I want to know what runs you find easy. I want to know if you, like me, sometimes find your easy runs don't feel as easy as you think they should. And for an emoji at the end of the video, I was looking for some kind of button like the Staples advert with the easy button, but I couldn't. So I want you to put a moon. I want you to put a crescent moon in the comments to let me know that you stayed to the end, and a bonus point if you know how I tied that easy button in with a moon. By the way, I don't think this is fair because there is a certain age group and a certain geographical location where you're going to know what I mean. So with that, it's Matt B. This has been a chat on how running is easy and how it's really not. Be kind, be happy, run well. I'll see you in a couple of days.